Peter, John, James, Andrew, Philip, Thomas, Bartholomew, Matthew, James, son of Alphaeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas, son of James. All these were constantly devoting themselves to prayer, together with certain women, including Mary, the mother of Jesus, as well as his brothers. These are the names of the 11, plus some unnamed women and brothers, who had reconvened in the upper room following the ascension of Jesus. You may recall the first time we find the followers of Jesus assembled there in that upper room. It was the night before the nightmare of his crucifixion. That night where Jesus offered his very essence, his body and his blood of the new covenant. That night where he then prays for them, that they may all be one, as I and the Father are one. You may recall that terrified, traumatized group hiding behind locked doors following his death in that same upper room. And now, they assemble in the upper room once again, no longer behind doors locked out of fear, but out of a sense of joy and expectation. The joy that Jesus had been restored to them, resurrected from the dead, and the expectation that he is fulfilling his promise to them. A remarkable transformation has taken place amongst these 11 men, a number of women, and the brothers of Jesus. They are awaiting the fulfillment of this promise. I will be with you always, even to the end of the age. In Jerusalem, in Judea and Samaria, and even to the ends of the earth. Even unto the ends of the earth. Even unto 2023. Even unto Birmingham. Even unto this very place, at this very time. Jesus has promised to be with us. Now, I often like to think of St. Luke composing not just a sequel, but a trilogy. If Acts is the sequel to the Gospel according to Luke, I wonder what tales he would tell about the acts of these certain unnamed women and brothers of Jesus. I like to imagine that the third part of his trilogy might be titled The Acts of the Apostles in Alabama. Has a nice ring to it. What names might be recorded in this gospel? Well, before we let Luke record the names of those assembled in the Acts of the Apostles in Alabama, allow me to tell you a story. This week, Elizabeth and I will celebrate our 21st wedding anniversary. Now, our 20th anniversary last year was, unfortunately, marred by a nasty trip over the handlebars of my bicycle and a broken collarbone. But this year marks 21 years. And 21 years was exactly how old we were when we got married back in 2002. Well, in the process of our courtship and discerning our future together, Elizabeth and I decided that we wanted to be sufficiently egalitarian in how we asked her parents for their blessing to get married. We decided to both meet with both her parents, asking for their blessing on this momentous occasion. I had quickly learned that though her father is a retired lieutenant colonel, that it was her mother was the one who I had to win over. She was the one to be feared. After we made our pitch to them, they said, "We are so happy for you, and we give you our blessing. It's not a matter of if, but when. Why don't you come down next weekend and let's take a look at your finances? If we can come up with a plan for you not to go into debt, then you may get married." Those were their words to us. I was so excited at them saying yes that it wasn't until the drive home that the condition hit me. If we can come up with a plan for you not to go into debt, then you may get married. As a college kid, financial planning often meant checking my account balance before heading to the Purple Onion. And to be honest, I had never really given much thought to financial planning or avoiding debt. So the next weekend, with great trepidation, I gathered together my bills and my checkbook and drove down to Elizabeth's parents' house. My future father-in-law had set up a projector and screen in their living room with an Excel sheet. And we began to work on a budget, a plan to start our marriage off on a healthier financial footing. This was perhaps the greatest blessing that he could have given us as we sought to start our new family together. Now, at some point, every family has to figure out their own way how to navigate and prioritize their own money and budgets. Money comes in, money goes out, and oftentimes it takes a disciplined plan to make sure those two amounts are not way out of proportion. The early church, in fact, later on in the book of Acts, will struggle with a similar problem. There were parts of the church that lived in an area that had experienced a famine. It was a poorer area. So the part of the church that had enough sent resources to the parts of the church that were in need. And there are numerous examples where the early church clearly discussed and discerned their faithful use of money. Well, one of the major takeaways from this vision, values, and goal-setting process we began this past January was a need for greater financial transparency here at All Saints. While our family parish budget is by no means a secret document, we do recognize that more can and should be done to make sure the financial needs of the parish are communicated clearly and effectively. How we raise money for the funding of our mission requires attending, not affixing. Well, when it comes to the financial health of the parish, the good news is that this category of our budget called plate and pledge, that is, the money that is placed in the offering plate or given on Realm or through an online bank draft, that plate and pledge giving has been steadily increasing over the past several years. That is good news. The challenging news, however, is that the category creatively called other receipts, those occasional, unplanned, or one-time gifts, have decreased significantly. while we have worked diligently to control expenses, the cost of things like utilities, repairs, and insurance have all increased significantly in recent years. And as some of you may have heard at our parish meeting last November, we shared that we were projecting a deficit budget for this year, 2023. So in short, our expenses are projected to be greater than our income. Now, the vestry recognizes that this is not a sustainable pattern, and we have been working on a strategic plan to balance that budget. A key component of that plan is to retire our debt. As some of you may know, All Saints currently has a loan of just over $500,000 from renovation and repair projects from many years ago. And we currently spend $55,000 a year to service that loan. Now, this is where we all come in. If you would, this is where Luke's certain women and the brothers of Jesus gathered together in this upper room come in. As part of the strategic plan to balance our budget, the vestry and I are asking you to make a gift to what we are calling the brick by brick, a pathway to sustainable financial future. Now, the goal of this brick by brick is to retire the debt and move towards a more sustainable financial picture. While this campaign will not be constructing a new building, it will be building a better future for the mission of All Saints. So, individuals, families, or groups are encouraged to make a gift of at least $500 to have their name inscribed on a brick, to be laid on a walkway outside the glass doors of the church, thus laying the foundation for a more sustainable financial future for our church. A brick would make a lovely memorial for a deceased loved one, a recent graduate, or any family who has found All Saints to be a meaningful part of their lives. Small groups or Curcio reunion groups, Sunday school classes, and other ministries are also encouraged to contribute a brick. And for those who are not able to give that amount all at once, that gift can be broken up into two gifts of $250. I hope there will be some that are able to give more than that amount, but I hope that all will be able to participate. I don't know if this has hit the mailboxes yet, but a letter describing brick by brick has gone out this past week, so keep a lookout in your mailboxes for this information. But the gift can be made either through Realm, there's a drop-down menu that says brick by brick, or by simply dropping a check in the mail with brick by brick in the memo line. After we have received your contribution, we will reach out to you when we are ready to inscribe and install these bricks. If we hearken back to the very beginning of Luke's books, both his Gospel and the Acts of the Apostles, we are introduced to Luke's patron, one Theophilus, a man who apparently funded and gave money to help Luke write his account of the Gospels. And so, in a similar way, we are continuing St. Luke's practice of naming those who continue to gather now in this upper room. By adding our names to these bricks, we are giving names to those certain women and brothers of Jesus who continue to devote themselves to the apostles' teaching, the fellowship, the breaking of bread, and the prayers. The good news is not only that Jesus has promised to be present. The good news is also that you are present. That we are here together, experiencing the risen Christ in this upper room. The Acts of the Apostles is not just a sequel. It is part 2 of a trilogy that is yet to be composed. And I cannot help but wonder, was St. Luke holding his quill and asking us the question, may I add your name to the story?